Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Curtis. I'm so excited for our project this week. This week we're going to be working on drawing realistically. And realism means we're going to make it look as real as we possibly can. So we're actually going to be working off of some photographs of an apple or a pear, and you're going to decide which one you want to draw. You don't have to do both of them. So here are what they look like once you've drawn them. Here's my realistic apple. I've drawn it as real as I can. I've got all the little highlights and shadows. And then here is my realistic pear. Again, I tried to create it as realistically as possible. The colors aren't exactly the same, but they're pretty close. All right, so we are going to be doing the apple, or I'm going to show you how to draw the apple. If you want to do the pear, you're going to be on your own for that, but the steps are going to be the same. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and cover up the pear with my paper over here so it can be right up against the apple. And we're going to get started. Now, I'm actually going to draw on top of my photo with my dry erase marker, because if I draw on top of my sheet protector with my dry erase marker, it will erase later. You don't have to do this part. You can just look at it as I do it on the screen and then draw it on your paper. But if you wanted to be able to draw on the photograph, you'd need to print it out at home. All right, let's get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of mark out or measure out where the top, the bottom, and the two sides of the apple are going to be. You can see in my photograph, I don't have a lot of space at the sides, and I have a little bit more at the top. So I'm actually going to kind of mark that out. So I'm going to just make a line here, 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 and here. And if I look at this, I can see that it's actually a rectangle because it's taller than it is wide. So I know on my drawing paper, I need to make myself or map out a rectangle. So I make it nice and big. So using my pencil on my drawing paper, I'm going to go make a little line on the side, line on this side, almost to the edge, just like my photograph, and a line at the bottom. And again, I've mapped out a rectangle. It's taller than it is wide. This is important if you want it to look realistic. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually connect these lines with the correct shape. So if I look at the left side of my apple, I can see that it's a big curve in between the top and bottom line. It's got a really nice curve to it. So I'm going to come onto my drawing paper and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw a nice curve that comes all the way out to my line and then have it curve back in. That looks pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to look at my right side of my apple because it's not exactly the same. This one actually curves out, and then on this side here, it kind of comes in more at an angle. So it's more flat right here than round. So when I draw it on my drawing paper, I'm going to start out, let's make that a little longer. I'm going to start out making it kind of curved. And then when I get past that halfway point, I'm going to have it angle in. So when we do realism, it's really all about the details, making sure that the details are accurate. Okay, now that I've got the sides of my apple, I'm ready to look at the top. We drew a straight line here, but I'm going to erase this here for a minute because if we look at the top of the apple, it's not actually a straight line. It kind of curves up and then in and then back up again. So on my drawing paper, I want to create those curves. So I'm going to erase those guidelines real quick. And I'm going to have it curve up and then in and then back up again. Okay. And let's take a look at the bottom of the apple. So if I erase that straight line because it's kind of in the way, I'm going to see that this is not a straight line either. It kind of comes out. It's a little bit bumpy along the bottom of the apple as well. So get rid of that straight line. It's just a guideline. Goes under, out a little bit, and then back in. So it's just a kind of a bumpy line. All right, that looks pretty good. I think the only thing I want to do now is just erase the rest of those guidelines so I don't have those flat edges on the side. Just kind of clean that up. Okay, so we've got the shape of the apple, and that looks pretty good. It's pretty accurate. We're ready to start working on the inside details. Now, when we start to do this, we're not actually looking for lines or edges. We're looking for where the values change. That means we're looking for the light areas and the dark areas. If you look at the apple, the biggest light area that it has is right here. And it's shaped, I kind of call it like a shark's tooth shape. Comes down to a point, and then it's right there. So on my drawing paper, I'm going to look to see where this goes. Don't put it down here at the bottom or onto the right side. It's kind of to the left, towards the top. It curves. Give me that shark tooth shape. Point down. And there's my first value on my apple. And then I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep looking for those lights and darks. So the next big area that really stands out to me is that the right side of the apple is a lot darker than this left side, the right side and kind of the middle. So I'm going to kind of look at it like this, and I'm going to say that right along this space is a lot darker. And it kind of comes down like that. So this whole area is a little bit darker than the left side. So on my drawing paper, I'm going to do that same thing. And it kind of follows the shape of that shark's tooth. It curves down and around. Okay. The next area that's really noticeable is actually right here where the stem is. It gets really dark right inside where that stem is because it's a hole in the apple where the stem is sticking out of. So it's kind of a flat shape along here. The dark area actually goes up the apple stem, back down, and then it actually comes out across the top of the apple like that. And we also see where the stem and that piece are connected. So for this one, it's going to come across the top, almost flat. It's going to go up. The stem comes up past the apple, back down, and then here it's kind of a zigzag or jagged line for that space. So we're showing that value there. Now, opposite of that darker value on the right side, it's a little bit lighter in there. So I'm going to draw a line or an outline around that one as well. And that's going to create the illusion that the stem is actually sitting down inside of the apple. I do need to erase that overlap line right there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. There's still more values on here. The more values that I can find, the more realistic my apple is going to look when I'm done. So if I look really close along this left side, it's really, really light right there. So I'm going to make that value in here. And it's not a straight line, so I want to make sure that even if I don't make all the wiggles and bumps exactly the same, I do want to make sure that it's not a straight line. If you use a straight line, it's going to look kind of like a robot apple. All right, that's pretty good. Where else do we see them? I do see a really light area on the right side of the apple as well, so I'm going to put that in. It kind of looks like that. And then I see some really dark areas. They're even darker than this whole section. And then you're going to go right here is a darker area. And along the bottom is a darker area. And then right here in the center, it gets just a little bit darker. So, oops. Oh my gosh, I almost drew on the wrong picture. Another shadow right in here. Okay, so I'm going to put that shadow in. Now, when you're drawing all of these values, you want to make sure you're drawing them lightly because these lines don't actually exist. And you'll see what I mean here in a minute because I'm going to do some erasing of them here. But you do want to make sure that you kind of draw them in lightly. I'm drawing a little bit darker because you need to be able to see it on the screen, but you want to make sure you do lightly. Now, the last thing that we're going to add is actually the shadow under the apple. So if I look under my apple, I have a big shadow that comes all the way around, curving under the apple. So on my drawing paper, I'm going to draw that too. And it starts right underneath that big dark shadow. It's down below and then connects back in here. And when we look at this shadow, we can also see that there's some variation in the value. It's actually much darker right in there than it is on the outside part. So I'm going to create that value as well. Just like that. All right, we have drawn our apple. We are done with the first part of our drawing. You're going to go ahead and finish up yours. Make sure you have all the values. You may see some values that I didn't put into mine, and you can add those into yours. Everybody sees value just a little bit differently. So you might see some areas that are lighter or darker than I did. But if you really look closely, you might find some. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.